Hello again! We're here to review some books, more precisely my 2025 top picks. I read 30 books last year and I didn't quite remember how many of them there were that I liked. So I actually got 8 books with me today that I'd like to talk to you about because, they made my year special. So maybe you'll find one that you like and let's dive right into it. First off, Haruki Murakami, Norwegian Wood. I love a Murakami. I just love his style of writing. It was no surprise to me that I adored this book. This one, it follows the story of Toru. Some people say it's a love story. I didn't think as much. Clearly there's love as a reoccurring theme in this one, but I feel like it's more of a coming of age story of our protagonist and how he deals with loss and his relationships. So this one actually is not dark, I would say, but it talks about some heavier themes like death is a big topic in this one. I'm just going to read you the plot so you know what it's about. So Toru, a quiet and preternaturally serious young college student in Tokyo, is devoted to Naoko, a beautiful and introspective young woman, but their mutual passion is marked by the tragic death of their best friend years before. Toru begins to adapt to campus life and the loneliness and isolation he faces there, but Naoko finds the pressure and responsibilities of life unbearable. As she retreats further into her own world, Toru finds himself reaching out to others and drawn to a fiercely independent and sexually liberated young woman, which would be Midori. So you can see that death plays an essential role or a central role in this, as it is a central factor to the relationship of Toru and Naoko. So Naoko is Toru's first love. Well, he has feelings towards her. And it's difficult for them because of the death of their best friends when they were just teenager or late in their late teens. And the story explores not just Toru's feelings for Naoko and the relationship that they have, but it also has a huge focus on how Toru moves on with his life, or not moves on with it, but how he comes to terms with the loss of his friend and what that means for his relationship with Naoko as well. And in this story, he also meets Midori a little bit later on, but Midori is one of the other supporting characters apart from Naoko and a few others. And one thing I must say, the supporting characters in this book, the story becomes lively because of them. So plus points for supporting characters in this one. With Midori and Naoko, he has his 2 main connections in this book. Those are his focal points, let's say, relationship-wise. And the story is heavily influenced by the conflict that he feels being torn between these 2 women. On the one side, Naoko, who he has feelings for clearly, but also feels the responsibility for in a way. And then Midori, who is bringing a sense of lightness to his life and is kind of something that he hasn't expected. And he's torn between the 2 because of the promises he made, because of his past and what letting go might mean to him. And how he's coming to terms with that. So just to give you an idea how Murakami lets his characters explore their thoughts and be very reflective of their inner thoughts as well, I might read you a passage. This is also kind of on death. So this is Toru thinking about the death of his friend years ago. So, and how that's kind of changed his perception of death. Death exists, not as the opposite, but as part of life. Translated into words, it's a cliche, but at the time I felt it, not as words, but as that knot of air inside me. Death exists in a paperweight, in 4 red and white balls on a billiard table, and we go on living and breathing it into our lungs like fine dust. Until that time, I had understood death as something entirely separate from and independent of life. The hand of death is bound to take us, I had felt, but until the day it reaches for us, it leaves us alone. This had seemed to me the simple logical truth. Life is here. Death is over there. I am here, not over there. The night Kazuki died, however, I lost the ability to see death and life in such simple terms. Death was not the opposite of life. It was already here. Within my being, it had always been here, and no struggle would permit me to forget that. When it took the 17-year-old Kazuki that night in May, death took me as well. It sounds heavy. It is heavy, but not quite as much. So death is obviously a central theme of the book. However, the way that Murakami writes, well, he explores these thoughts of his characters. And I think this is a way that he kind of can separate it a little bit from the rest of the flow of the story. So it doesn't feel as heavy, and you kind of want to know how the characters progress on their journey, because you get this deep insight into their thoughts. So yeah, I love reading that kind of stuff. Maybe you're here for it too. So next one, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I think you can find this one in the self-help section of your bookstore. I love reading though about people's thoughts and how they reflect on life sometimes. And yeah, so I don't mind reading a self-help book every once in a while. I mean, if you've read one, you kind of read them all, but everyone sees life slightly different. I think it's funny the way that we think we're so special or abnormal or weird, awkward, whatever, with our thoughts. And then you read a book like that and you realize, well, I mean, we kind of all want the same things, right? So we're people, we're not all that different. I think it is crazy, actually, that there's not one thought that you think to yourself that not another person has thought. And maybe not the exact same way, but slightly the same. So clearly a lot of thoughts of Glennon Doyle resonated with me. I think she has a podcast as well as she does TED Talks, I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen much of her in that regard, but this book clearly resonated with me. I actually bought this after reading it's the prologue that got me. So this is a collection of short stories, right? It's all moments of her life, how she reflects on certain situations, how they made her into the woman that she is. It's a book on exploring womanhood, being your authentic self, and well, most of us, I guess. Well, not most of it. I don't want to speak for anyone, but I am a people pleaser or a recovering one. So oftentimes we'll just, not make the choices for ourselves, but really think too much about what other people think. And we put ourselves in a box that kind of adheres to societal standards. So I think this book really shows her coming to terms with herself. And the only story that you need to read out of these is the first one, the prologue. And this is the reason that I bought this book actually as well. It's called The Cheetah. Cheetah as the fast animal, not the cheater. And I'm not going to read it to you, but it captures so well what the essence of this book is. It's just growing into yourself and stepping out of your cage. So if you find this in your bookstore, read the first story and then decide if you're gonna buy it, because that's the one that got me. Sold immediately. I thought this is the one I'm gonna read. And I really enjoyed it. Maybe I'll read another one of hers. I think I'm kind of moving away from the self-help books at present because, like I said, you've read one, you've read all of them. But this one was really one of the better ones that I've read. And I think, is this the only one I read last year? I think so. It's a good one. I mean, read the cheetah and then decide. Next one up is Alte Sorten. It's a German author that wrote this one, Ewald Arenz. I think in English it is called Tasting Summer, which I find strange. The title, not, the title, well, I mean, Alte Sorten means old varieties, and it's regarding pears. So this book is set on a pear farm, and the pears play a role in one of the protagonist's life. And so this one is beautiful. This is, first of all, it's beautifully written. I hope it translates in English the same way that it does in German, because this author, I think I'm gonna read some more of his books, because the way he writes was just bliss. I mean, it's not often that I come across a book where there's nothing much, let's say, happening in it. It's not big plot twists, or there's not so much adventure in this book. It's quiet and unassuming, but it's moving, and I loved reading that. It's actually my favorite book of 2025. I think it was that far up there I think it tied with The Seven Husbands of Emily Hugo, but those are such different kind of books, and I'm gonna get to that one in a second as well. But yeah, this one's special. It's about two characters. So we have Sally and Liz. And Sally, she is young. She's nearly 18, about to finish high school. And she is lively, loud, bubbly, and she is angry a lot of the times. And she runs away. She runs away from home, or not just home, but she escapes a clinic where she's being treated for her anorexia. Well, I'm not sure if it's ever specifically mentioned in the book that it's anorexia she's treated for, but it hints at it from the very beginning that this is the issue she's struggling with. And she's trying to run away from essentially that life she has there. And she ends up on this pear farm at Liz's farm. And Liz, she's a 40-year-old woman. She is living a very secluded life. She doesn't have many connections. She doesn't talk to her neighbors much. She's very much for herself, by herself on that farm. And the story is about these two women forming a friendship and connecting and getting to know each other. It's really beautiful to see they just kind of let themselves be. They live with each other. Well, Liz offers Sally to stay there the night, and then it doesn't stay with the one night. They live together for weeks on weeks. And they are such polar opposites, actually. And I think one of the fantastic things about this book is they both narrate the story, but you don't have, like in some books, you have the name written on it. Well, now Liz is telling the story, or now Sally is telling the story. You don't have that with this one. But the moment you start reading the first 2-3 sentences of each chapter, you immediately know which character is speaking. And that goes to show how well the author has written these characters, because you don't need their name to be written on there to know exactly who's speaking. And there's not so many books that I have experienced that with. So they get to know each other, they get to experience or get to know each other's pain slowly. They form a bond that is incredible. And it's the only German book, I think, on my list from last year. And Yeah, I hope you enjoy this one if you do read it in English. I hope it can sort of come close to the way that this author writes in German as well. Great little read. I'm gonna look for some more of this one. Next up, we got an Emily Henry. I've heard so much about Emily Henry, and after reading this, I'm definitely gonna read some more of her. This is the only romance book I think I read last year. I might be incorrect, but this is the one that I remember anyway. So I don't usually read romance just because I'm not a fan usually, because they mostly seem so superficial. Characters don't, well, they are. Sometimes characters in romance novels are just dumb. There's so many times that I've read a romance novel and was like, oh gosh, this is so stereotypical, so on the nose. The plot twists, you can expect them from a mile coming. I usually stray away from them, unless I need them as a palate cleanser. As a palate cleanser, I'm rooting for the romance novels because it's just good if you've read like a very heavy book that's been dealing with some topic like death, like the Norwegian wood one, and you're just like, oh, I can't do this with the next one again. So you're just gonna grab a romance book. This actually was a recommendation of a friend, and I must say this is the best recommendation that I got last year. I was in a reading slump so deep, I didn't pick up a book. This is the only book that I read that month because the start of the month I couldn't get myself to read anything. That was August. So when I told her that, she was like, I have the perfect book for you. I'm not going to tell you much about it. I've read it. This just flies by in a breeze. It'll get you right back on track. And she was absolutely right. I've loved reading this book. It's witty, it's funny, humor is on point. It's an enemies to lovers kind. You gotta love that trope. So there's really nothing, there's no flaw that I found with this book. So you get Nora. She's a cutthroat literary agent at the top of her game. Her whole life is books. It helps that two main characters' whole life is books. Charlie is an editor with a gift for creating bestsellers, and he's Nora's work nemesis. Nora has been through enough breakups to know she's the one man date before finding the happily ever after. To prevent another dating dud, Nora's sister persuades her to swap her city desk for a month's holiday in Sunshine Falls. It's a small town straight out of a romance novel, but instead of meeting sexy lumberjacks and handsome doctors or cute bartenders, Nora keeps bumping into Charlie. She's not a heroine, he's not a hero, so can they take a page out of an entirely different book? The thing I love about this is, well, they're supposed to be anti-heroes, both of them, and they are in a way because this book plays so much on the stereotypical romance novel and how she's not the stereotypical hero in a romance novel because she's not any of the things. Like, she's not the cute one, you know? But then she also goes to Sunshine Falls, which is exactly what would be the plot of said romance story. And it kind of plays on a lot of that, pulling the leg of the classic romance novel that's not that multifaceted, let's say. But I really, really enjoyed this one. I'm gonna read another Emily Henry for sure. Total recommendation. If you are in a reading slump, read this. No explanation needed. This is gonna get you out of it. Next one is Orbital. You see, this is a teeny tiny book. It's tiny and mighty. This one actually won the Booker Prize 2024. I didn't know that when I bought this, but this is just brilliant. It's an artwork, I'd say. It's about space. space exploration. It's not science fiction or anything. It is just describing the life of astronauts in space. And I mean, it's not that special in technicality because they have a routine that they need to follow to stay healthy and all that. They see the same thing sort of every day because they're spinning in orbits. So it's repetitive, right? But the beauty in the style of writing, the beauty of how she describes all of these things that they experience in space and how they reflect on their life on Earth, what lives they all have, because they're all from different nationalities, right? The crew that's on board, and it's just special. I'm gonna read you a passage because I feel like this is like standing in front of a piece of art when you're like in a museum or something and you're just looking at it, admiring the paint strokes. It kind of felt like that. So you can't even imagine how long this took me to read. I started this, I think, the mid of the year, June, July, something around that. And then I didn't finish it until December, not because it's a difficult read, but I just wanted to take in I just wanted to take in every passage, and I didn't want to rush it because I was just scared that I might skip something and then I might not appreciate the craft that has gone into writing this. Because, okay, let me just read something. So this is when they get shot up in space. They have each at some point been shot into the sky on a kerosene bomb and then through the atmosphere in a burning capsule with the equivalent weight of 2 black bears upon them. They have each steeled their ribcage against the force until they felt the bears retreat one after the other, and the sky becomes space and gravity diminish, and their hairs stand on end. Beautiful. It's just beautiful. There's so many passages like that. It's just poetry. I'm a sucker for poetry anyways, so got me with that book. Gorgeous. I mean, this was a dream. I loved it. Great read. So, well deserved to be on the list of my top picks of 2025. For the next one, I'm going to turn on my Kindle, or maybe I could just show you the title in here because, I read this one on my Kindle. It's Eleanore Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. And, well, I mean, the title is very on the nose because she's clearly not fine, Eleanore. Well, she is, in her own little bubble. Let me see, what award did this one? The British Book Awards. It won the British Book Awards. It's a great book, actually. And I'm just realizing the cover of it, like, I'm not sure if you can see it on here. I might just pop it up next to somewhere. Anyways, because I never realized how much that is part of the story. Okay, well, anyways. So, Eleanore Oliphant is completely fine. Well, she has a lot of childhood trauma, Eleanore. And she has a lot of social issues with that. Like, she's not very sociable. She doesn't have any social skills. She lives in her own little bubble. She doesn't have friends. She doesn't spend time with her coworkers. She's very isolated, let's say. And I'm going to read you the plot. I'm going to need something where I can read you the plot from. No one's ever told Eleanore that life should be better than fine. Meet Eleanore Oliphant. She struggles with appropriate social skills and tends to say exactly what she's thinking. Nothing is missing in her carefully timetabled life of avoiding social interactions, where weekends are punctuated by frozen pizza, vodka, and phone chats with Mummy. But everything changes when Eleanore meets Raymond, the bumbling and deeply unhygienic IT guy from her office. When she and Raymond together save Sammy, an elderly gentleman who has fallen on the sidewalk, The three become the kinds of friends who rescue one another from the lives of isolation they have been living. And it is Raymond's big heart that will ultimately help Eleanor find the way to repair her own profoundly damaged one. Soon to be a major motion picture film. Okay, well, I mean, this is no longer part of the plot, but you get the gist of it. So, yeah, Eleanor has had a traumatic childhood. She, is just getting on with life. She has her routines. She doesn't go out much. She tries to stick to herself. And then there's Raymond, and he is, well, he's disturbing her peace, let's say. She's not keen on making friends with him, building a connection with him, but it happens. And she doesn't have any social skills, meaning that she doesn't read social cues. She doesn't overthink what she's saying because she doesn't have connections to people in her life where she would need to overthink, because that would be, well, it's not intuitive to her, right? She's been on her own for quite some time, and it's not coming naturally to her to overthink things like that. But she's very judgy, because the way she analyzes people, there's just no filter. And she doesn't say this out loud oftentimes, but because of the way it's written, we get to know everything that Eleanor thinks. And it's fascinating to see her thoughts sometimes. This book got me so emotional in parts, but it was also hilarious in others. So this was just a joy to read. And the character is crafted with so much love. I think this is a great read. Gail Honeyman. Maybe I'll check out more books of hers as well. I'm not sure if this was this a debut? I like reading debut novels. I'm not sure if this was her debut, but it was funny and got me emotional, and characters, just great. Next one up, we got a fantasy novel. I love good fantasy. I read fantasy too rarely. I used to read fantasy so much when I was a teenager, exclusively. I didn't read anything else. Then, I don't know, life happened. I kind of grew up a bit and thought, we can't read fantasy anymore. Whoever told me that? I love reading fantasy. This one is about vampires. V.E. Schwab also. I love her. She's a great author. I actually got to see her at the Frankfurt Book Fair, and it was just so cool to hear her talk about her process of writing, but also about this book specifically. This is what I got right afterwards, because I heard her talk about it, and we were like, well, we have to get this book. Like, there was no way we were not going to read this. I was there with two of my friends, and we read it in the book club. So this one was so cool. I didn't leave any marked pages because I flew through it so quickly. I just devoured this book. Love a good vampire story. I think the last one I read was the Twilight Saga, which I absolutely loved the books when I was a teenager, and then the movies came out, and I feel like I was disappointed. Was everyone disappointed by the movies? I'm not sure. It's been so long that I've watched these. Do you know some people rewatch that for Christmas? I'm the typical Harry Potter marathon kind of girly. Though in the last year, I actually swapped that for Lord of the Rings. I don't want to say I grew tired of Harry Potter, because that's not true. I still watch that. But Lord of the Rings has been my comfort movies as of recent. So maybe I'll add Twilight to the list. I should try that again. Like, maybe I've been too judgy at that time. Anyways, totally ventured off topic there. Vampires. This is about vampires. This is a cool approach to vampires. Like, I still thought vampires were that cool. It's about, well, there are 3 female leads in this. It's a queer romance as well in it. I just love the strength of the female characters in this one. V. Schwab, the way that she writes is just something like the melody to a song. It has a certain flow to it. It's sort of artistic. I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. That was the first book that I read of hers. And I was mesmerized. This is the one that made me fall in love with V. Schwab. Let's just say it how it is. And this one is... I don't have words for it. That's not true. I have words, but it's hard to describe. So with this one, we move through different eras. So we start in the 1500s, then in the 1800s. And I loved that one because it has like that Bridgerton-esque kind of vibe with the seasons in Britain. And I love that part of the book. And then we end up in the modern day, which is 2019, I think, is where we end up in here. Yeah, it's just, there's so many plot twists in this book. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping from one thing to another here, but the first one had my jaw dropping, actually yelled out. I'm not such an emotional reader. Do you know these people that when they read a book and something happens, they just chuck it across the room, and you can see kind of on their face how they're really agitated when something happens? I'm not that kind of a reader. I keep my emotions to myself mostly, but this one, yeah, I was taken aback by what happened, and I think that speaks for the book. So I'm going to read you the poem that kind of threads throughout the whole book because it carries meaning to the vampires. And I think this is such a cool way to describe the essence of a vampire. Bury my bones in the midnight soil, plant them shallow and water them deep, and in my place will grow a feral rose, soft red petals hiding sharp white teeth. I mean, first of all, this is a very cool little poem. It's not really a poem, it's just 4 lines, but I felt like there is a sense of pride in those 4 little lines because only the vampires that really have come to terms with who they are now since their life ended or their life changed, however you want to put it, the ones that use that poem, they've really come to terms and feel a kind of pride of who they are. Whereas the ones that don't use the poem, I feel like they struggle with being a vampire, which I'm not entirely sure if that's correct. That's a thought that just came to mind now. But, well, it's a bit hard to tell you something about the plot without taking too much away. So maybe I'll just leave it at that. But there's 3 female characters, and they're all set in different ages, right? So like I said, we have the 1500, the 1800, and the 2000s. And they're all set in their time of when they are born, basically. And, well, these characters are connected. And it's a bit hard to tell you how they're connected, but the dynamic that's between them, that is what carries a lot of the book. There's a lot of connections you don't really uncover until later in the book as well. So I'm just not going to say anything. It's about vampires. It's very cool. Fantasy. Must read more fantasy this year, actually. V.E. Schwab. That is my author recommendation for you. She writes great things. She has so many book series that I think I'm gonna need to read as well. This is a standalone. Addie LaRue is also a standalone. I think the other ones are series, so I haven't been diving into those yet, but maybe I should get onto that. Anyways, on to my last book. All right, last one on my list, but certainly not least. I flew through this book, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This was a great read. I loved every page of it. No flaws. So what is this book about? Evelyn Hugo, clearly, She is a Hollywood icon, not a real one, but in the story she is. And she's well in her 70s, I think now. And she approaches a journalist to tell her story. She says, I'm going to sell my story to you and exclusively to you. And I'm going to tell you everything. And you're going to publish it. So we don't know why she picked this journalist. Well, not in the beginning. You have to stick to the end of the story to find out what that is all about. The book itself is split into the 7 sections of her life, which are marked by the 7 men in her life, her 7 husbands. And I think it's very clever to do it that way. It also, some are shorter, some are longer chapters, but all are equally as intriguing. And I think this is such a good commentary as well on celebrity culture, because isn't it so crazy to think how nosy we are as people and how curious we are about other people's life, especially if we can tear them down with it. Like the whole celebrity culture, paparazzi behavior, how we circle or hover over a person's life. Just so curious on getting all of the details. And then just tearing them down while doing that. I always thought that was kind of weird. I mean, when I was a teenager, I used to read those tabloid things. I've kind of steered away from that entirely. I haven't really followed any of the tabloid media in the recent years. Yeah, I think that kind of stopped when I ended my teens. Not that I don't get curious sometimes, but I feel like that is actually such a flawed part of our culture. Like, why would you terrorize someone over getting to know certain parts of their life? Anyways, this book kind of draws on that because, well, Evelyn's always been hunted by paparazzi and just people that want to know details about her life, that want to have a peek behind the facade of who's Evelyn and Hugo. Kind of reminds me a bit of the Marilyn Monroes and Princess Di's of our time. And yeah, it's very intriguing. This one is actually, it feels sort of real, like you can really grasp it. I read this book everywhere. Like I read it on the train, I read it while cooking, I read it while walking home from the bus stop. It's I never put this down. It was that good. And spellbinding, I think that's the right word. It's very glamorous, but it also is very raw. So this is something you shouldn't miss. This should be on your list. I'm not sure if any of these recommendations help you in any way. I hope it wasn't too long of a video, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But these are my picks for 2025. Me with my little stack of books that are gonna go on my bookshelf once I have one. That is still a work in progress. But I've loved each and every one of these, and I hope you may have found one that you love equally as much as I did. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!